Hey, it's Bill from Build the Scene. You're listening to 3 Questions and a Song, episode number 40. With me tonight is Erik Winger. What's up, Erik?
What's going on, Bill? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
What's going on, interwebs?
Erik used to live not far from where I am.
Right.
He's been right here in AK Music Studios, AK Music Scene Studios. You see those air quotes a couple times. But I was just familiarizing him with the way the show runs and catching up with him. It's probably been 15 years since he's been here.
15 years. It's a long time.
For those of you that are hopping on and watching us live right now, I see you popping in there. We do have the ability to see your comments live. So if you want to interject anything, we may react to whatever you ask or say. May pop up on the screen if it's something
nice.
Cool. So just to give any new listeners a quick explanation of the show, it is literally 3 questions, 1 song. So we're gonna, without any further ado, I'm gonna give a little explanation as to where this question came from, and it kind of just all fell right into place.
Okay.
So earlier this week, Dee Snider took a shot at Gene and Paul because, again, he doesn't like that Erik Winger and Tommy Thayer are wearing the Catman and Spaceman makeup.
Yeah.
And then I was at my mom's house yesterday, and she was all excited because she's making me masks to wear in my classroom. And she was making a Kiss one. And I picked it up and I looked at it, and 100% the makeup is in the shape of Tommy Thayer and Erik Winger's faces.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt. Because
sure.
Tommy has a much wider chin than Ace did.
Yeah.
And I picked it up and I started laughing. She's like, "Oh no, what's wrong?" I'm like, "Calm down."
It's faux Kiss.
And I've seen Peter and Ace. I've seen Tommy. I've seen Erik. Clearly, I've seen Paul and Gene. But my question to you is kind of a 2-parter. And since you're in a Kiss tribute band called Kiss Alive, and clearly a Kiss fan, it just all fell right into place that I can ask this question. What are your feelings about them wearing the makeup, and what do you think the best lineup was through the years?
That's a great question. That's a touchy subject amongst Kiss fans. I think I'm a realist, and of course the Kiss that we remember, the Kiss that is responsible for it all is and will always be Gene, Paul, Ace, Peter. That is the prime lineup. Peter wasn't the best drummer in the band, but he was the drummer that kind of defined that sound. He was kind of like a jazzy drummer in a heavy metal band. He was the band's Ringo. Like, the Beatles would not sound like the Beatles with another drummer. Kiss
or Metallica's Lars.
Right? Yeah. Well, I have a funny story with Metallica relating to Kiss I'll get to in a moment, but Peter, just as much as Ace's signature licks made that sound, Peter's drums made it. When Erik Carr came in, it became a much heavier band. Like, if you listen to that stuff, Creatures of the Night, and they were a much heavier band. So definitely Peter, Ace, Gene, and Paul. We wouldn't have Kiss without it. It wasn't just the 4 people, and it was just a chemistry. You know, they each brought their own personality to the makeup designs that they chose. Now, all of that being said, if we want to be really strict with our definition of what Kiss is, then Kiss would not exist if it had to be Peter, Ace, Gene, and Paul. Just would not exist. It probably would have stopped existing 15 years ago, and a lot of people might argue that it did stop existing 15 years ago. Peter is 74. And if you watch I've seen Kiss about 15 times. The last time I saw them, the farewell tour, or the end of the road tour. The farewell tour was in 2001.
I was at that one. I saw
that one too. I will say, like, the best times musically I've seen Kiss I'm sad to say it, but it's true, was not with Peter and Ace. Throughout the reunion tour, Ace was Peter was solid, but he was using drum triggers the whole time. So Peter's always had issues with carpal tunnel. So he'll hit the drum, and with the drum trigger, he just needs to touch the drum with the stick, and then the trigger, amplifies the sound, makes it so like he's just barely doing this. Like he's barely hitting it. And that was in the 90s during the reunion tour. So imagine 24 years later, he's just, I don't know what he'd be able to do behind the kit, but he couldn't do a show. That's why Kiss didn't reunite the original members at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Gene and Paul just like, listen, I don't want to tarnish what we've created by having us get up and play. Now, Ace, through the years, when Ace was not clean, when he was still drinking and drugging, he was just really, really sloppy. But I've seen Ace a few times the past few years, and he's better now than he's probably been playing since the late 70s. I think he's, aside from in the 70s, I think he's playing now as good as he's ever played. So I think Kiss could reunite with Ace, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ace do some shows. Now Ace has said publicly, like, I'm not stepping on stage to play with Kiss if this schmuck's wearing my makeup. I'm going to wear my makeup too, or he's not going to wear that show. So I think Ace has some more bargaining chips than Peter does. Do I think Peter could rally for a song or two on a couple dates? I think he could. I don't think he could play a whole show. I don't really think he probably wants to. I think Tommy and Erik have done a great job of keeping this thing going. And I think what people really object to is not that there's different guys in the band, but there's different guys in the band, and they are wearing that's Ace's face. You can't put Ace's face on, man. It's not cool.
Well, along the same lines, though, when Vinny joined, his makeup was terrible.
the Egyptian Ankh.
Yeah,
man, and Eric Carr's the Fox. Like Kiss, Gene and Paul have publicly said many, many times, it's ridiculous to think that we're just going to create all these different face characters because somebody decides to leave the band. Like, this is the character that Peter was playing was the Catman. Ace's character was the Spaceman. A lot of people don't like that. I mean, you can make a solid argument for that, but at the end of the day, Ace and Peter, well, at least Peter did. Peter signed over the rights to his makeup. Ace argues that he still retains it.
Yeah, I think Ace gets some money, it's licensed.
We know Peter was fired, right, at the end of the Dynasty tour, and I think it was Shandy video or the Shandy video maybe, that they filmed it, but Peter had already been fired, and it was the last official business that Peter did with Kiss. For the Unmasked album, Shandy, which wasn't a bad album. It just didn't do anything really in the States. It was kind of poppier. It was pretty big in Australia. But Peter left. But Peter was smart. I mean, he just got fired. But remember, he was still a 25% business owner of Kiss Ltd. So for years after Peter left the band, he was a 25% owner still. And then once Ace left, I don't know if Ace was bought out, but I don't think Peter relinquished his share until 1987 or maybe later. But it was some time. But I love the band. The tribute band I'm in it's tricky. There is a Kiss tribute band called Kiss Alive. We're Kiss Alive, the tribute. So the tribute is added at the end of it. We have a Facebook page. Check us out. I play Peter in that band, and it's a really fun gig. We're doing a reality TV show, off against the mighty, incredible Mr. Speed. Mr. Speed, I think, is one of the, if not the best Kiss tribute bands out there. They originally were from Pittsburgh, and I met them in the 90s. I sat in with them a few times and played drums in Norm Nardini. I don't know if you remember that guy, local Pittsburgh music legend.
He is still playing.
Yeah. Well, Norm Nardini's studio. Well, here's the funny story with this. So anyways, 96 probably, the reunion tour was going on. I met Rich, who was their Paul Stanley, through a friend, Dell, and they needed a Peter. I was in college. They invited me to come audition, and so I went to Norm Nardini's studio where they rehearsed, right? Norm's a Pittsburgh icon, for those of you who don't know. Great guitar player. Now, here's an interesting tidbit with Norm that relates to Kiss, and Norm came in to tell us these stories. So in the 70s, Norm was in a band called Diamond Rio, not to be confused with the country band of the same name. Norm was in this band called Diamond Rio that actually opened up for Kiss on the tour that Alive was recorded in 1975. So we had all these stories about how their Marshall stacks on stage were empty. They just wanted it to look huge, but they wouldn't let them, shine lights on the speaker cabinets. Like a lot of the audience noise was piped in through the PA, like just crazy creative stuff, because that's what Kiss does. But so anyways, Mr. Speed, great band. We're Kiss Alive, the tribute, and the concept of this show, it's called Tribute Band or Tribute Wars USA, something like that. Forgive me for getting it if I get it wrong. It's filming in Hollywood, Florida at the Hard Rock Casino. But the bands are from all over the country. It just happens to be in my backyard. I live in Orlando, so it's 3 hours away. But every night, I think there's 13 episodes the first season. So there's going to be a Led Zeppelin night, a Heart night, an ELO night, a Poison night, a Kiss night that we're doing. Every night, 2 bands that pay tribute to the same artist are going face to face. So we tape live on March 3rd at the Hollywood Hard Rock, and tickets are available. Come see the taping, and then it'll be on TV eventually. That's all I know, but we're really excited for it. They're a great band. We're a great band. So we've always focused on more the early, leaner, hungry years of Kiss, like Alive, like 74, 75, 76. I think Mr. Speed just did a whole Dynasty costume and stage setup, and it looks magnificent. So that's going to be that.
I watched a live video where they talked about changing their costumes for that.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Well, it's going to be interesting. So it's just going to come down to, we got to be on our A game. I'm sure they're going to bring their A game, and it just comes down to, I guess, who was more convincing, so we'll see. But, so I enjoy doing that. I will say a day for us with that band is like being in a Kiss tribute band it's ridiculous amount of fun. Because we have a really, like Kiss, we have some really intense and loyal fans because, they understand that we just love the band and we're fans of the band, and we know we're not Kiss, but we are trying to give you the most authentic Kiss experience that we can, and it makes it's a celebration of the band and the music. It's so much fun. So a typical night for us when we do a show is we load in all of our gear. We bring lots of stuff: fire, pyro, and the big Kiss sign that lights up, sirens, all this stuff. And
they do Firehouse.
We do Firehouse. We got the hat. So, So if we have an 8 o'clock show, then we're loading in around 10 or 11 a.m., getting set up. We have a great road chief that goes with us. He's so amazing, and he's a loyal friend, and he's a workhorse for the band. His name is Frank Avila, and we love him. He's our 5th man, and he brings his girl Sabrina, and she's incredible. And they just come. And Frank has several remotes to run all the tricks and whistles during the show while we're playing. Gets Gene's blood ready, gets Gene's fire ready for the for the fire breathing. So, but we load in early, we sound check early because, some of them are really good with makeup. I'm not. I'm still learning it. It's hard.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was trying not to waste a question on that.
Oh no, it's really hard. It's really hard. Like, so our Paul John is just great. He helps me. Jimmy, our ace, helps me a lot. I've gone on and looked at pictures and read how Kiss does it, and we do the same process. So, you got to start with kind of do the white almost everywhere, right? And you got to powder. Then we take Q-tips, or then we take a black eyeliner and we draw the patterns over the white. We take Q-tips and clean the white out of the inside where the black or silver or whatever is going to go. And then we powder. And then we delicately do all the other stuff. And it takes a while, but John helps me a lot. So because he helps me a lot, he does his makeup last, but I'm the first one done, so he has time. So I'm often like fully suited up, made up, got the wig on. I had a custom wig made by my buddy Justin that looks amazing. And I'm ready to go 2 hours for the show. So then I'm trying to eat food and not mess up my lipstick. But so it is challenging. What's incredible though, with like, you just got to powder it, because we go out there, if we're playing an outdoor show, I mean, we're in Florida. If we're playing an outdoor show, it's unbearably hot, no matter how many. The last gig we did was at a Harley Davidson dealership in the middle of the day. I think it was like a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock downbeat. It's for a big Harley party out in their parking lot. And it was 95 degrees, I think, and we're wearing makeup on our faces, But the interesting thing about it is when I'm playing, and I get really physical and I have fans blowing on me, but like when we're playing, like, then we usually open with Deuce or like Psycho Circus or occasionally Detroit Rock City. But like by the second song, I'm looking over at Frank and I'm going, is this messed up? Because I just feel sweat pouring down my face. And what's incredible is like, no, it's not. I'm sweating underneath it. So the powder really affixes it there. And I'm drenched. But like, if you're right up close, you might see really minor like flaws once the sweating starts. But like from the audience, it looks fresh and new and it looks great. And so it's basically, I'm trying to get more sufficient in applying the makeup. Basically, John will draw, or Jimmy will draw the shapes, and we'll do the outline, and I'll just do all the coloring in once I'm not going to mess anything up. But
so one comment I do have, I've only been to Orlando one time.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was 91, but the heat index was 99, and we were at Disney, which is all blacktop. I've never been so hot in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if I remember correctly, you worked at Universal Studios, correct?
I've worked at Disney and Universal Studios. Yeah.
And they were both music, correct?
Yeah. So
let me finish.
Please do.
I'm going to make this the second question. So,
okay.
I also know that when you were back here in Pennsylvania, you were in a cappella band. You mentioned you play piano, you play guitar, you play drums. So this one, I'm gonna leave this one kind of wide open.
Okay.
I kind of fill in what your musical history has been up until this point. And
okay,
music teacher, right?
I was a choir teacher. Okay, so y'all got time? Y'all got some time? We have anywhere to be? All right. So, The Story of My Life by Velvet Jones. No, just kidding. So, yeah, I grew up in Katanning, up Route 28. Probably a lot of people from Katanning that watch this. Small town. What was amazing about Katanning when I grew up, so I just turned 45. So I was in the 80s and 90s. That's when I was really digging into music as a young kid. My dad was a frustrated drummer. He's air drummer. While he'd walk around the house with his Walkman, his headphones in while he's painting, just air drumming and screaming Zeppelin, Kiss, whatever at the top of his lungs. So, but I became bitten with the music bug pretty young. And in seventh grade, I got my first drum set because I wanted to be Peter Criss really bad. Like 13-year-old Erik would be really thrilled with what 45-year-old Erik is doing now. I got my first drum kit, and in seventh grade, I met this gangly nerdy kid in Mrs. Rumbaugh's English class. He was a new, because Kataning's a small town when there's everybody, and this kid I'd never seen before. So he was he was from Carbondale, Pennsylvania, up near Scranton. His name was Brad Satorka. And one day I had this jean jacket that I used to wear every day. It's like a Levi's dark blue denim jean jacket. I had my Kiss patches. The back patch was a Winger back patch. The
Ha.
first album cover, which I saw them on their first tour at the Syria Mosque with
You
Bad
you know
Company.
you know how you have no idea how important what you just said was. Keep going.
Yeah. That's a great band. Anybody that tells Beavis and Butthead can. Winger's a great band. So, anyways, I met Brad, and I walked around in my jean jacket. I had drumsticks, and I just pound on desks all the time. And he walked back to me one day, and goes, "Hey, you're a drummer? How you like Kiss?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a drummer. Pretty good." I wasn't, but I thought it was. And Brad's like, "Well, I like Kiss too. I play guitar." I'm like, "Okay, all right." So we arranged to get together, and he had a Univox semi-hollow body guitar, and he had a Marlboro amp. I think it was a Marlboro amp, a little crappy, maybe like 30-watt piece of crap. And I had a Pearl export kit, and Brad and I would get together after school. We'd either go to my house or his house every day for literally the next 5 or 6 years till we graduated, and just play music. We were in bands with, all those great people, but they're like, Mike Starr and Doug Seth and Ryan Rumbarger and all these people. Ben Balasek. We just had bands or musical chairs. We just all jumped around different bands. But there was an amazing amount of musicianship in that town. Like back in the day, like we had Bill Roncher and Joe Ruskowski doing mad crazy things at like GIT.
I have
And
not heard Joe Roncher's name in a long time.
Yeah. Brad and I played in band. Like Bill was like so cool. We had this. He had an ESP George Lynch kamikaze, and I have a really great George Lynch story too. He had a George Lynch kamikaze. He's really into Lynch. Lynch was probably one of his biggest influences. And when I was like in 8th grade, 9th grade, like Bill was like the king guy. He had just got out of high school. Tyrus, his band was like really Tyrus, I think. They were really big, and Chris Lohr was the one that was singing and playing in that. And
Chris is in Nashville now, right?
Yeah, he's in Nashville. He's doing his thing, and I hear he's really successful with it. But Bill would like come play with Brad. We put a band together and just like ask Bill to come play it, and he would. Like, we're like, you're way too good to play with us, but I don't know why he did it, but he did it, and I just always thought, still to this day, that was really cool. I think Bill's a stand-up guy. Now, my George Lynch story, I want to take a slight detour. My buddy has a band in town. He's Paul Drennan's his name. He's a bass player. Amazing guitar player. This guy's just amazing guitar. Plays that rockabilly stuff like nobody's business. Play blues. He just got it. And he's one of those guys that he plugs a Les Paul into an amp and just has gain. Like, doesn't need the fancy pedals to sound good. It's all here, and he's just amazing. He plays bass in another band called Blandini, and Blandini is led by Jeff Blando, who is Mark Slaughter's guitarist and Vince Neil's guitarist in their solo bands, with Will Hunt, who plays drums, and Will Hunt was in Evanescence for years. So we go to see Blandini at the Seminole Hard Rock up in Sanford. This is probably, a year and a half ago maybe. And because George Lynch started playing with the band. So it was Blando on guitar, my buddy Paul on bass, and the drummer was really cool, really flamboyant. He reminded me of Blas Elias from Slaughter, because he would throw his sticks around and he'd stand up and do. Zoltar was the drummer's name. Zoltar, it's his actual name. But George Lynch would come and sit in, like he'd been playing with him. And so we go to the show, and because we know the band, George is on stage, warming up, and my buddy Richie and I, who introduced me to Paul, we just go up on stage, and I'm just talking to George Lynch, and I'm like, and he was playing through a Marshall stack, and an Eddie Van Halen 5150 cab and a head for each of them. And I just remember thinking, like, how am I on stage with George Lynch talking about guitars and gear? And I thought of just that time, the 80s, early 90s, when that kind of music was ruling the world. But really cool player, still great, and really humble, nice guy. So anyways, go back. Brad and I were great friends, had a lot of bands, and then I was a singer primarily. I did all the musicals and stuff and had fun, but I started singing with professional choirs of adults, like when I was a junior in college, or junior in high school, rather. And we would go to, like, I sang with the Bach Choir of Pittsburgh, and we would just kind of tour around Western Pennsylvania, Johnstown, and do concerts with the Johnstown Symphony Orchestra and some other. We do like some great works. And then the big choir in town was always the Mendelssohn Choir. That they were the choir that sang with the Pittsburgh Symphony. They were the choir that did a residency at Heinz Hall, and Robert Page was their conductor. And so I auditioned and became the first high school kid ever to sing in that choir my senior year. And it was so much fun. And I loved Robert Page, one of the greatest choral minds we've seen the past 100 years. But he was instrumental in me going to Carnegie Mellon, where I studied opera. I was a voice major, and he was the choir director at Carnegie Mellon. So I graduated in 97. And during that time, I played rock and roll in some bands and had some fun. But my studies were really stressful, and it's a really competitive environment. So I tried to just really focus on what I had to do at Carnegie Mellon. Then I graduated, and I wanted to play rock and roll. So I loaded up my car with some drums and recording gear and my acoustic guitar, and I moved down to Fort Pierce, Florida, where my friend Brad had moved right after high school. And it was in Fort Pierce that I was hired to do my first show at Disney, which was an a cappella pre-show to the Beauty and the Beast stage show. We were four guys. We came out before the Beauty and the Beast show at Hollywood Studios. Now, it used to be MGM, now it's Hollywood Studios. Disney's Hollywood Studios. We came out dressed in tech gear and started setting up microphones. We started sound checking them, and then we break out into song. And it was the dream gig. It was so much fun. And that show was there for 14 years, and I was in it for 10 of those years. I sang in an a cappella group, as you mentioned, back in Katanning with
Distinguished Gentlemen.
Distinguished Gentlemen, yes. That started because our senior, Brian Schaefer, who your listeners will probably know, Brian Schaefer and I, he's also like all-time greatest friends in the world. Like, I was in his wedding, he was in my wedding. He'll be in my second wedding, I'm sure. Yeah. But we auditioned for the musical, which was The Music Man, and we didn't get Harold Hill. We thought either one of us was going to get Harold Hill, but our buddy Brett Kitko did. Instead, we were cast as the Barbershop Quartet with Daniel Atwood and Tom Childs. And while the whole cast was great, like Kelly Rude was Marion the librarian and Brett Kitko was Harold Hill, we kind of stole the show a little bit. And after the musical ended, we started getting calls from to come sing at a mother-daughter banquet, to come sing at a VFW or the Elks Club. And so we realized we kind of liked singing together, so we had to learn a bunch of other songs so we could sing more than the songs that we had in the show. And it kind of went from there, and then we discovered more contemporary a cappella, like rockapella and the House Jacks, and we kind of morphed over the years to do more contemporary stuff. But we did a lot of fun stuff. We sang quite frequently with the Marcells. We added Ben Balasek and became a 5-piece, which was a smart move. We sang with the Marcells that sang Blue Moon, so ba 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 ba. That we sang with those guys all the time. We sang with the Vogues, who had the theme song for the Drew Carey show, I think. It's a 5 o'clock world and a whistle blows. They had a theme song for Drew Carey was Cleveland Rocks. They had a theme song for some kind of TV show, I thought. And we sang with the Monkees in front of 56,000 people. That was the highlight of our career. So I loved a cappella music. So when I finally got to do it at Disney, that was a lot of fun. And then played in some bands in town, got back into that scene. But then I took a break from the full-time performing thing right in 2002. I started an 11-year career as a school teacher, and I did middle school choir. I spent 2 years at Glenridge Middle School, and then I went to Liberty Middle School, and I did 7 years there. And I ended at Meadowwoods Middle School and did 2 years there. And by the end of year 11, I was so burned out. Like, I love the kids. The kids are the best part. I keep in contact with as many of them as I can. And when I see them or run into them, which has happened a few times, it's a great joy. That was the best part of the job. I just was burned out. I was burned out, and I was getting older, and I realized that, I want to just go sing and play guitar and make music. And the older you get, there's a shelf life for it, And I'm in a great town for it. The opportunity is here with the theme parks, the conventions, and the clubs. So I left teaching in 2013 and have been fully freelanced independent musician since then. I've been really lucky and really blessed. I've been able to travel the world, been to China, I've been to the Philippines. We just literally a month before COVID came, I sing in a Frankie Valli tribute show called the Atlantic City Boys, and we do a lot of cruise ships, a lot of performing arts centers around the country. But we had done a short little tour of Australia from Melbourne to Sydney, and that was so much fun. We came back and did Vegas 2 weeks after we got back from Australia, and I got back. We've played Vegas we do a weekend of shows at the South Point Casino, either February or March every year for the past. I think this was our 5th year we've done it, and so life was good. And I was playing in a new band at Epcot, which I had been playing in for past 7 years since I left teaching, 2013. Called British Revolution. We played at the UK Pavilion at Epcot, Disney World. And so this is how crazy it's been. So, February, get back from Australia, hop off a cruise ship, fly home, stay home for a couple weeks. Then we go to Vegas for the week. And we got back from Vegas. We flew back from Vegas on a red eye on March 8th. And we had literally done a show that night. I was already miserable because at dinner before the second night of shows, I bit down on a piece of steak and there was a bone in it, and I cracked this back tooth. Like, I cracked it completely to the root. And so I would be okay, but if anything got anywhere near there, as you know, tooth pain is like the worst in the world. So I had to do like 2 shows with like ridiculous amounts of pain. And I came home, flew home on a red eye. So we did our show Sunday night, and as soon as the show was over, we went to the airport, flew home. I got home at like 6:30 in the morning, East Coast time, and just was sick as a dog. And this was March 8th, so I had like a high fever, a dry cough. So
I see where you're going with this.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. So I went to, now remember, so if you look at a map, like China is up here, Australia's here. It's not that ridiculously far from each other. And this was early in we were aware of this COVID thing, but we weren't really like upsetting our life yet. We wondered, is our Australia show going to be canceled? No. Is Vegas going to be canceled? No? Okay, cool. So, we do a show, you do a theater show for hundreds or thousands of people. We go out in the lobby and shake hands and hug and kiss everybody after the show. And so one of our guys was sick in Vegas. I got sick when I got home, and I went to the walk-in clinic, and I tested. They did a flu A and B test on me, and I came back negative for both of those. But there was no COVID test available to give, so they just sent me home with antibiotics that didn't really do anything. But about 5 or 6 days later, I was okay. I just got better. And then a couple weeks later, my brother got sick. So fast forward to March 15th, we find out that our show at Disney we find out that Disney's actually closing for 2 weeks. They're going to close until April 1st, which wasn't the case. They closed much longer than that. But a day after Disney announced they were closing, they called our show producer and said, we know we've had you for 9 years here. Your band's been here for 9 years. We're hemorrhaging money, having to pay all these salaries while the parks are not open. So we have to cancel your contract. So even when the parks come back, your band won't be there. And that was a tough one because I didn't anticipate that. It was one of the best gigs I'd ever had. You get to go to work every day at Disney World, put on a guitar, and play Bohemian Rhapsody, and play the Beatles, and play the Who, and play all this incredible music. And that's my job. It was so great. So that was a heartbreaker.
March 13th was the date where I was told that I was going to be working from home for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. And then did they end up just getting rid of your school year altogether?
We taught I taught from my kitchen using Zoom.
Did you make it to the end of the year?
We did.
That's awesome. Wow.
And we just started this past Thursday. We went back. We're in the building full time.
Wow.
I will tell you, wearing a mask from 7:30 a.m. until 3 p.m. Not liking that.
It's tough. That's hard. I've had to. Well, since we lost our job, I sat at home, and a week later, my baby sister on March 23rd died.
I'm sorry,
unexpectedly of a drug overdose, and 1 week before her 37th birthday. And she left behind a 16-year-old, 12-year-old, and a 7-year-old who were wonderful kids. No father in the picture, but my parents were already pretty much raising the kids. So that was the second week of COVID, the worst part of it for sure. It's still bad. We're still dealing with that. And it just became evident really soon that, okay, this isn't going to be over in a month. No matter, we're social distancing, we're quarantining, it's not going to be over. So the entire calendar of events for musicians just disappeared. If you had anything on the calendar for, even into 2021, take it off. So
yep.
I started doing what am I going to do? I don't want to just sit on unemployment and expect the government to feed me all. I want to be productive. I can work. What am I going to do? So I started. A buddy of mine, a retired Navy chief, who has a business called Mobility Plus, and what he does is he installs chairlifts for disabled veterans. And like I said, he's retired. He's and he's not doing it to make money. He's doing it to serve and give back, because that's the kind of man that he is. So he reached out to me and said, I know you're down and out. I'd like to pay you good money, cash. You have to claim it if you'll come and help me on these job sites. So it's been amazing. I've kind of learned a new trade. I mean, he still does most of the work, but whatever he needs done, I do it. I just kind of bring, an extra body and a good attitude. And if I could tell you how touched I've been meeting some of these amazing men and women. We did a chairlift for a vet who I think lost the use of his legs when he was 29 or 30. It makes you think I am so fortunate and blessed. Thank you, God. So I pivoted to that, but those jobs only came up once every couple of weeks. So I would do private Zoom concerts for people, and it proved to be pretty lucrative. But I think you can only go to that so often.
Yep.
I made the first one I did. I played for an hour and walked away with like stupid amount of money through just like $1,300, and then I did it. That was a private one. Then I did a public one for Facebook, and I made almost like over 600 of that one. It was great, you know, and and I figured that's probably all I can do. So I've just been pivoting from career to career since then. But music's always been my passion. You know, it's always will be my passion, and I'll get back to it eventually. You know, so it's a
Well,
long-winded answer to a very short question.
but I left it wide open.
Good. All right.
So what we're gonna do next? We're gonna play your original Ballerina, but before we do that,
Yeah.
let's do that VH1 storyteller thing, and you tell us a little bit about that song.
Okay. So Ballerina will be the lead track off of the CD that I started recording. Wait for it. July 25th and 26th of 2006. No excuse. I started it. So interesting story. At that time, I had just sold a house, just had my heart broken, and I wrote a great album worth of material, largely centered around this girl. And I remember reaching out to a local guitarist producer he's an incredible guitar player named Angelo Giannotti. And because I wanted to get these songs down, I thought, you know what? Let me make a record. I've got a little bit of cash because I had profits left over from my house. And I sent Angelo a couple demos I had done. He's like, yeah, I want to do this. This is fun. So Angelo, he's like, I knew the bass player I wanted to use was a guy that I played with in my worship band at church. He was just incredible. His name was Jeff Halsey. And for drummers, I was just coming up empty. I knew I wanted to play the guitar as much as possible, even though I had Angelo willing to play anything and he could play circles around me. But it was kind of an ego pride thing. Like, I wrote these songs on guitar. I've kind of worked out the parts to them. I want to do all the guitar. I want the guitar to all be me. So he was going to help me find a drummer. And actually, we almost used Billy Joel's longtime drummer, Liberty DeVito. We were going to use him because Liberty had done, we probably could have gotten him, but I would have had to have flown him down from New York because Liberty for a time had lived in Orlando. And then in the mid to late 90s, while he was still with Billy Joel, he lived in Orlando because real estate in New York was too crazy. And so we came down to Orlando, and because of that, he met a lot of the same people that I know and play regularly with. So a lot of people knew Lib. And he's like, I could probably get Liberty. I'm like, that would be awesome. Billy Joel is one of my favorite artists. But we ended up going with a guy that I had already known, but I had known him primarily as a singer, a drummer named Randy Nichols, who is like, everybody needs a friend and a cheerleader like Randy Nichols. He's just this lovely, lovely, beautiful human being. He's love and light 24 hours a day. He's a ridiculously talented drummer. He's an amazing vocalist. He's an incredible producer. He's an even better human than all those things. And I can't find a single, not that I've looked, but if I tried to find a single person to say something bad about him, it'd be impossible. And Randy and I used to do, in the late 90s, we used to do session work together as vocalists. So I kind of knew Randy, but I just hadn't seen him in years. So Randy comes in on drums, and that's the start of the project. So life happens. I'm 99% done with the entire album. I just got to lay some vocals down and then mix it. So Ballerina, to get back to that, I think I wrote this. I was really into early John Mayer at the time, so and you'll hear that influence. Heavier Things had just come out. There was a song on it called Only Heart, and there was something about the chorus, something about the song. I got my only heart. I think that's the name of the song. I haven't listened to it in years, but I'm like, that's cool. I want to rewrite that song, which is something that I like to do. I know a lot of singer-songwriters probably do this. If you're watching, maybe you agree with this or you relate to this. But like I'll hear songs that I like, and I in my mind I try and think, all right, I want to rewrite that song. And what I mean by that is I want to take what jumps out to me about that song, what makes it special, what makes it cool.
Sorry, I keep hushing my son. I'm sure you saw me.
All right. It's all right. No, it's all right. It's fine. So when I say rewrite a song, it means I want to take what I like about that song. I want to deconstruct it, run it through the filter of me, and see what comes out. And it sounds nothing like that song. And I've done it with a few songs, but I remember thinking that song kind of inspired it. And lyrically, it was inspired by a girl that I had dated. The title ballerina comes from I had been dating this girl who, actually, no, I hadn't dated her yet when I wrote the song. I was trying to date her. And I eventually did get to date her. But she played Belle at the Beauty and the Beast show that my a cappella group did the pre-show for. So when we were really good friends, and I just thought she was amazing, and had just this huge crush and been in love with her for so long. And so the song was called Ballerina. She wasn't a ballerina, but it just made sense in the environment of all these dancers around us when we were at work. But it kind of was an amalgamation of several different girls that I was dating around that time. Musically, what I like about it is I'm a melody whore. I'm really drawn to like those earworms. I don't think pop music should be a dirty word. I think you can write good, smart pop songs and put some nutritious musical elements or lyrical elements into it. And that's kind of been what I've tried to do with this song. There's key shifts that you don't expect, and it's just kind of fun. I really like it. It's got kind of a early 2000s John Mayer, before he went all granola country on Born and Raised, all that stuff. So it's, yeah, so I'm playing all the guitars, doing all the vocals. It's Randy Nichols on drums, Jeff Halsey on bass, and my good buddy John Sparling on the keyboard. So I hope you enjoy.
So we're going to take a moment. We're going to listen to Ballerina, and we'll be right back with Erik Winger. Those of you that are tuned in on Facebook or watching the video later, you will not get to hear the song that way. You'll have to go to buildthescene.com. You can listen to the radio version on Sunday afternoons, 2 p.m. for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, so excited.
Or you can just go to the show's drop-down menu, choose 3 questions in a song, and you'll be able to hear it there as well. Okay, so now what we'll do is I'll come back in as if we actually played the song, and I'll ask you the Royal Honey question.
Yes.
We'll banter a little bit more. This is definitely going to be the longest episode of this, but it's cool. Everything you gave me was awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Talk a lot. Okay, yeah.
Okay, that was
next time. If I come back, it'll be like 0.5 questions in a song. Half a question in a song.
That was Erik Winger's Ballerina. You're listening to 3 questions in a song. What we're going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and let last episode's guest ask the 3rd question, as we always do. Okay, and this is why I said you didn't know why it was so important that you brought up Winger.
Yeah,
they said a similar thing to what you said about how hard it is to come up with the question. And they wanted to use one that showed that they listened to your stuff, but they couldn't get past asking you how many times you've been asked if you're related to Kip Winger.
Kip. I get called Kip a lot, I'll tell you, like we talked about before the show, is that I think that Winger is a great band. Beavis and Butthead were completely wrong about them. You had Rod Morgenstein from the Dixie Dregs on drums, Paul Taylor, who years later toured with Steve Perry on his solo tour as the keyboard player. You had Reb Beach on guitar. I think, who's Reb play with now? He plays with
Whitesnake.
Whitesnake, yeah. And then Kip Winger.
Someone else too.
Yeah, he plays with, he's killing it. And Kip Winger's voice and the spinning ballerina bass player stuff, like I saw them. I get asked that question all the time. And I remember it was my dad that introduced me to the band. So my dad was a pilot when I was growing up. He was a captain, so he was never home. He was home maybe 2 days of the week. And I remember he came home one day with the Winger CD. he bought it simply because of the name. I think he had heard the first single, which was Madeline. Madeline, I think that was the first single. I think he had heard that, heard the name, and then he went out and bought it. And then he bought us tickets, the whole family, mom, dad, me, and my brother. I don't think my sister went, to see Winger open up on their first tour for Bad Company. So what a great show, right? It's great, two great bands. But it was at the no longer there Syria Mosque. That's where we saw the show. And I remember rushing to the stage. My brother and I got to the very front of the stage for Winger's performance. I got to slap Kip Winger in its hand. No, I get asked that a lot. Yeah. I can never call my band that.
No.
Maybe Winger ... also. So, no. Very proud.
And what I told him was, I said, he is currently in Florida, but he is originally from the Pittsburgh area. So I'm sure that happened a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure did. It sure did.
With, Reb is from this area.
Fox Chapel, right?
Yep.
Yeah, great band. That first album was amazing. Second album was good too. I saw them again. Open up for Kiss. I think it was the Hot in the Shade tour. It's funny the things you remember. I remember my first Kiss concert was January 16th, 1988. Civic Arena, Love Gun tour, or Crazy Nights tour. Love Gun was the opening song. And Ted Nugent was the opening act.
I saw Kiss with Ted Nugent, but it was in the 90s.
Farewell tour.
Yep.
Yeah, 2000, yeah.
And I tell that story a lot because some guy got drunk behind me and was threatening me.
Oh, jeez.
And he ended up punching a bunch of people in the crowd, but not me. It was. I'll tell it to you off the air.
Yeah.
I've told it on the air before. So you said that the album's like 99% done.
Yeah.
Do you have a release date picked?
I don't. I just have to drop a few lead vocals on it. A lot of it, there's some more stuff that's pretty much ready to be mixed. At this point, it's just the expense. And I've got a really great guy who was actually the drummer of my for a short time, or for a long time, but a drummer of the British rock band I played with at Epcot. Stephen Shapiro, he's a great musician. He's got a great musician's mind, great drummer, and a great audio mixer. He does a lot of band stuff, and he mixed Ballerina and he mixed the other tune, Rescue Me, and he does a great job. So it's really just at this point coming up with enough money to do it, where you don't, in the middle of a pandemic, where all your jobs have gone away. So I don't have a date. I remember in 2017 when I got divorced, I said this will be done in 2017. So I've been making excuses for 3 years. So I want to predict within a year from now, the album will either be done or I'll have at least released the songs, maybe not as a complete 14-song collection, but I'll have at least released the songs 2 or 3 at a time on, as singles. Something.
All right, well, once you have them officially released,
yes,
give me a link to where it can be purchased, and I'll add it to,
of course. Awesome.
to this show.
Will do.
I want to thank you for coming on episode number 40.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
And I'm really bad at ending the show. The beginning is good for me.
It's great.
The endings I'm terrible at. In fact, are you familiar with John Lane?
I do know John Lane.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
So John Lane recorded some outros for me. So
nice.
What they're going to hear next is John Lane closing the show because I'm terrible at it.
Awesome. Cool.
So for those of you that were hanging out with us tonight, I want to thank you for hanging out as well. And as always, go to buildthescene.com, podcasterscene.com, or parockshow.com to find out all the stuff that I have my hands into weekly. This has been episode number 40, and we'll catch you on the 15th with. Oh, you almost got off.
I thought you were going to ask me to ask after the taping. Yeah, I got to ask my question, right?
Yeah, you have to ask your question.
Okay.
So it's Spider Accomplice. That was your homework assignment.
Spider Accomplice. Yeah, I did a little bit of a deep dive on this band that I really dig. What I saw, it reminds me of the best of Evanescence, and LA-based rock band, won a bunch of awards. Yeah, really cool music. I tried to think of a question, and I think this is just what I keep coming back to. It's not specifically about their music, but I'm interested in like how have they connected and kept connected to their audience through this pandemic. Like how have they continued to perform when nobody's have they done the Zoom concert? Like what have they done? What challenges have they found besides the obvious one, like everybody's got to stay inside and you can't congregate, and what creative ways have they tried or discovered to maybe get around the limitations of how we can perform and interact with an audience? Because that's really what it's all about, you know.
And they have a pretty big following online too, so it'll be interesting to see what they say.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. So, but they're doing great work. Keep it up, guys.
So now we're gonna let you hear from John Lane, and check us out on the 15th when the interview is 3 questions and a song with Spider Accomplice.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.